How did you deal with loss? Faith. You know, I'm Irish, I'm Catholic. The church has been a big part of my life.
Even though his voice helped shape American society, Ice Cube is more than just an icon. He is the spirit behind Straight Outta Compton and the soul of Friday. His name is in music, movies, and history because he came from one of America's worst areas and worked hard to get there. He is honest and has a fire that never goes out. His journey has given people hope. A life made up of loss, strength, and a strong will. But every win came at a price that was impossible to imagine. That kind of pain is strong enough to end any life. At age 56, the question still stands: what storm is still getting stronger around him? Before we start, please hit like to show your respect for his amazing skills and unbreakable spirit. The first cracks in his life appeared. He tore the sky apart before anyone knew his name, like rising gorges. Ice Cube was born on June 15, 1969, in Westmont, a part of south-central Los Angeles that didn't get much sunlight. The roads were cracked, and families learned to live with a strange silence that never really left their homes. Hosea Jackson, his father, came home every night with the tired steps of someone who had worked all day on the UCLA grounds, bringing both pride and a quiet burden. His mom, Doris, worked long shifts at a hospital and used a strict love that she learned from fear of what's outside. There was never a lot of money. Still, they were very careful with every dollar and kept things stable even though the neighborhood around them was shaking with fear. There weren't many conversations at their small dinner table. Instead, the soft clink of silverware and the steady ticking of an old clock filled the air. Outside, the sound of emergency sirens echoed through the night, a constant warning that danger was just outside their door. This weak world was shared by Ice Cube, his older brother Clyde, and A. Creative people like Delta Funky, Homo Sapiens, and Cam come from a long line of artists. But even that little bit of creativity couldn't protect a young boy from the weight of his life. He got the hurt that made him who he was when he was only 12. A moment that took away his youth and left a void that no one could fill. His sister Beverly died because of a terrible accident. She was in her late teens, so, out of the blue and without any reason, it felt like the world had lost its balance. He remembered how his mother's knees gave way when she heard the news. She covered her face with her hands as if she could hide from a truth that was too painful to face. He watched as his father stared blankly at the floor, trying to find something solid in a world that had just broken apart around him. On the day of the funeral, Ice Cube stood on the curb with his hands in his pockets and watched the car drive off in a way that didn't sound like a 12-year-old. He felt something deep down. He fell to a place he could never fully reach again. Years later, he would quietly say that losing Beverly changed the way he saw every sunrise. It taught him how fragile each moment was and how quickly someone could lose their life for doing nothing but being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The following weeks, their home became colder, as if loss had taken a seat at the table. Not even the tiniest bit of laughter could get back through the door. In front of the window, his mother looked at nothing for hours on end. Each day, his father talked less, and Ice Cube walked slowly through the house, as if he didn't want to stir up a memory he wasn't ready to touch. He changed in ways he couldn't explain yet. As I walked through South Central, I felt like a boy who had learned too quickly that the world doesn't keep its promises. The neighborhood is broken. He got used to the city streets, the warm asphalt in the summer, and the cool nights in Los Angeles. Reminds you that you borrowed the safety, not owned it. At school, he often felt like he didn't belong and carried an unseen weight. Even the laughter of his peers seemed far away, like it came from a world he was no longer a part of. He thought about it later and realized that Beverly's disappearance made him feel empty, which affected every choice he made. A quiet pain that came back out of the blue and made him think of all the things he wanted to say but never got the chance. What was left was a decision. At first, then thick, to find a place where the pain could stop, even if only for a moment. But no matter what he did, the noise in his chest wouldn't go away. Nothing but the one thing he didn't know how to do yet, right. Around age 14, he found the door that would save him almost by chance. A friend told him to type out some lines, and what came out surprised him. He didn't expect the words to feel so heavy, true, and sharp, like they had been waiting for years behind his ribs. He couldn't breathe, so he hunched over a small desk under a dim bulb and started writing late at night. He drew lines that carried both the sadness of his home and the beat of the streets outside. Every word felt. It was like letting go, or a wound opening up again so it could heal. Afterward, he said that no teacher, guide, or classroom had ever taught him how to write. His pain was the only thing that did. It wasn't a hobby to write. I had to stay alive. The only place where fear felt better and memories took shape. The only place where a young boy from South Central wasn't shaking when he talked. And from that quiet corner, from those nights when only pain and determination shone, a voice started to rise. It was Ice Cube's voice, and the world would one day know it. After his loss, his life became quieter. But the world pulled him forward with a force he wasn't ready for, asking him to be strong in ways he never chose because of pain. He caught a bus every morning from South Central to Woodland Hills and leaned his head against the cold window as he watched the city go by. He could only see a thin strip of road between two worlds that had never met in the past. Taft High School didn't seem real. Smooth floors, easy laughs, and faces that looked at him with interest or worry. His grief was so closely stitched inside him that no one could see how heavy he was as he walked from class to class. There are days when the stress of living between. With a house full of memories and a school that kept him away, it was almost too much for him to handle. He kept going, though, because of a promise he made to himself the day he lost Beverly. He was going to move forward even though he didn't know how. In 1987, he tried to settle down by going to the Phoenix Institute of Technology to learn how to draw plans for buildings. He did great. He had disciplined hands and sharp focus, but the cracks under his ribs were still loud even when he looked at plans. After the fact, he said that those lines and angles made him understand that no house he could design could put his life back together again. He turned away from that safe road after a year and went back to Los Angeles, where he had grown up too quickly and felt like he had lost everything. It wasn't a revolt. It was true. The kind that comes up when the silence is too much to bear. There had to be a place for everything he couldn't say out loud to breathe. Where shadows weren't flaws but stories that were just ready to be told. Music that wasn't changed in any way gave him that room. Around this time, he put all of his energy into writing, not because he wanted to become famous, but because he needed to stay alive. He formed CIA with his cousin Sir Jinx and played at backyard parties where Dr. Behind the decks, Dr. Dre kept the night going. Those events were loud and exciting, not at all like his quiet house. And in that beat, something inside him finally opened up. Dr. Dre also felt it. Every line Cub throws is heavy and well-placed, not just the flow of his delivery. Ice Cube sold Boys when he was 16. To Eazy-E and the Hood. Fame was still a long way off, but the air around him changed. Someone from outside his area looked at him for the first time and didn't just see a kid from South Central. They saw a voice worth hearing and a truth worth carrying. Still, the climb was not going to be easy. A lot of people didn't like rap and judged it before they even heard a line, and Ice Cube came from a place that was too often marked, ignored, or feared. Some people didn't give him a chance before he even spoke because they thought someone from his neighborhood didn't have anything important to say. His world had been changed by a loss he had already been through. After that, being turned down didn't seem so bad. He wrote late into the night, letting South Central lead him. The buzz of streetlights, the faraway sounds, and the weight of memories. With each line, he made something stronger than any plan he had ever looked at. A base of honesty, strength, and a firm belief that his voice would not be silenced. Because of that base, he didn't just start to rise. It was bound to happen. Success did not come easily. It came into his life like a storm that he wasn't ready for. It was loud, blinding, and asked him to use all the power that his scars gave him. It all started in a garden party late at night, with only porch lights and the low thump of borrowed speakers. This was a long time before everyone knew his name. Dr. Dre heard him for the first time there. It wasn't just a teenager trying out rhymes. It was also a voice that stood out because it was so honest. Later, Cube said that he remembered how Dr. Dre looked at him that night, as if he had heard something important. Boys in the Hood, a song he wrote when he was 16, was sold to Eazy-E at a time that changed everything. Not yet, it wasn't fame. But the world reached back for the first time when he talked. An early glimpse of light in a life full of dark times. And for the right people, That spark was enough to start a fire. There was something different about Ice Cube when he joined NWA. His pen was the sharpest in the room. The opinion of neighborhoods that the United States chose to ignore. Straight Outta Compton went off in 1988, making people across the country face truths they had been avoiding for a long time. His words didn't make me laugh. They made me think. Even though everyone agreed with what he said, the papers behind the scenes showed a darker truth. Contracts that kept what he earned from him. Promises wrapped in praise and a salary of only $32,000 for an album that sold in the $1 million. Signs that didn't have his name on them were putting out the fire he gave NWA. In 1989, leaving felt like going into the dark without a map. Still, he picked honor over comfort. Fully aware that being honest meant being alone. The early 1990s showed why he had been the rock all. Move Along. America Kiki's Most Wanted was a huge hit across the country in 1990, and Death Certificate was the next big hit in 1991. Without fear, without filters, and too honest for some people to handle. The Predator came out in 1992 and sold more than 2 million copies. It was the only album that year to top both the pop and R&B lists. At age 23, he was changing the way people talked in the country. But being great is heavy. He worked 16-hour days, slept on tour buses, lost his voice in between shows, and had to live up to standards that would have broken even the most experienced stars. As new sounds came out, G-Funk made waves on the East Coast, and then the next group did too. His quakes turned into shakes. There are few hurts worse than seeing a new era walk through the door you broke without knowing it. Who first broke it open? He would say years later that this change taught him a hard lesson. To be a pioneer, you have to learn how to stand tall, even when no one is looking. Hollywood wasn't a safe place, it was a new battlefield. John Singleton saw something raw and untrained in his eyes in 1991. Boys and the Hood made him a talent that the business could no longer ignore. But acceptance wasn't there to welcome them. People saw a rapper before they saw a performer in the casting rooms where he went. He studied screens the same way he used to study pain, until dawn. He learned scripts and changed scenes to make them real. Friday, 1995, a movie he wrote changed everything. Turned a $3 over and starred in. They turned a $5 million budget into $28 million and started a cultural legacy. Hits like